Hello guys, and welcome to a new episode of the Penny Podcast. I am Andrés Bear, I'm in 11th grade, and I am the Coppell Student Media Web Producer.
What's up? I'm Camila Villarreal, I'm in 10th grade, and I'm a staff writer for the Sidekick newspaper.
Hello, I'm Shreya Beldona, I'm in 11th grade, and I'm also a staff writer.
For those who don't know, the Penny Podcast is a weekly hybrid podcast that incorporates elements of interview and conversation with rotating hosts. Now, time for our first segment, named the Headline Rundown. Our first story comes from Anika Arutla for her article titled Monetizing Passion. Coppell alumna launches Madz Cosmetica, published under our student life section. I personally think it's really cool to see young individuals take initiative and start businesses just in general on their own. I mean, it shows that they have creativity and that they can put the hard work in.
Yeah, I wrote a story about these two girls who were starting a clothing resale business, and it turns out that one of them was my neighbor, and I just thought it was really cool to see that an entire business is flowering right next to my house. I didn't know about it, and so I think, as journalists, it's really cool to be able to expose that kind of business to the community.
And yeah, these are businesses born out of Instagram. Your iPhones, right? Pretty cool, right? Our second story comes from
Shreya Beldona for her article titled Fighting with My Family, Not an Average Wrestling Movie, published under our entertainment section. So, what are y'all's favorite sports movies?
Okay, so my favorite isn't really a sports movie. It is about sports. It stars Will Smith, my father. It's the movie Concussion. It came out in 2015, and it was about the I don't know how to say it, brain damage that comes with playing football, and how people can go crazy after playing football for so long.
I need to give that a try. Yeah, I think that my favorite is Air Buddy, because that's a really good movie. Yes.
Nothing less would I expect.
Golden Retrievers. All right, now time for our second segment titled This Week in Music. Something is near. I can smell grass, gasoline, and flowers. I wish I could describe everything to you, but I can't. I can only smell and listen. Wait, something is near. I can hear music. This month, the Sidekick will be releasing the first part of an interactive playlist set in Coppell. Keep your noses and ears open for its release.
I am so excited. I don't know the full details of this interactive playlist, but I am probably the most excited person about it because, oh my god, I just really want to see what it is. Okay, next up. So, Celine Knowles released her 4th studio album titled When I Get Home to positive reception. The album seemingly came out of nowhere with a near non-existent promotion cycle. Have you guys listened to it?
Yes. Have you?
No, I've yet to listen to it.
Oh, y'all gotta listen to it. It's amazing. All right. You know what else brings music to my ears? A solid staff member. And now, time for our segment titled The Penny Podcast Interview. Our guest being
Sally Parampottil. I'm a 10th grader, and I'm the co-student life editor.
Yay, Sally! I love you so much.
All right, Sally, so let's start at the beginning. How did you first hear about this Sidekick? What hooked you?
Well, I first heard about the Sidekick during our 8th grade tour when we came over to the high school. We were doing our tours of all the little areas, and we went by the KCBY room, and they had a little rack out, and they were like, oh, there's copies of the Sidekick. I was like, cool, and that was about all. And I didn't really go back to thinking about the Sidekick until, after, freshman year, I was looking at courses, to take next year. I wanted to continue the Principles of AV Tech endorsement, but I didn't really like the idea of KCBY or, yearbook. And I saw that Sidekick was an option. I was like, oh my gosh, suddenly I was taken back to when I was 5, on Microsoft Word, and I learned, you can input columns, and I was like, and I made my own little fake newspapers, and that 5-year-old just manifested in my 9th grade body and said, yeah, I'm going to take a newspaper next year.
Nice, so add some history to it.
Okay, so obviously the Sidekick is not like your general writing atmosphere. So what got you into journalism? Have you always been into it?
Well, the thing about journalism is that I've always loved the concept of it, being able to tell stories, but it's never been my style of writing. Like, I never thought, oh, I could be a journalist because, I like really flowery language, lots and lots of adjectives and commas and long, long, long sentences. So the idea of stripping all that away and just having facts and, finding creative ways just to, work around your facts and, words that other people use, not really putting in your own opinion unless you're writing for opinions, that wasn't something I thought I could do, which is why, it was a little hard for me at the beginning of the year to really, get into the zone. But the concept, yes, I thought journalism was cool, my entire life, the history of journalism and what it means and how it, brings information to light and how it lets that information circulate and how it, it educates a population. That's an amazing thing to me. I've always loved it. But the style of writing, like that itself, was something I wasn't actually sure about until I, learned how to do it.
That's really interesting, and you're really good at it. So like that's very, very surprising.
And Sally, when you first joined staff, did you ever imagine that you'd end up becoming co-student life editor or just an editor in general?
Absolutely not. I mean, like I said before, I didn't really know what I was doing when I started. I didn't think I'd be able to fit in very well because, the way I normally write, very creative and fluid and flowery. So I didn't think I'd be able to produce, good quality stories that would, get me, on the radar or anything. And I tend to be a little, withdrawn. I'm not very outgoing and extroverted. So I wasn't sure, is a leadership position, the best fit for me because, I don't know, I wasn't sure if my personality would suit that. I mean, I'm really happy to be a co-student life editor now. It gives me more to do, and I'm able to, meet new people, on staff. I get to interact even more, than I would already do. So I really love being an editor right now. And even though it wasn't what I expected, how I expected sophomore year to go out, I'm really happy that it turned out like this.
Oh my God, Sally, I'm so impressed by you, every single day. And you've written over 30 stories, right? Could you describe your writing process to us, any habits that you have when you're writing a story?
Well, when I write stories, I like to think of the people themselves. That's who I connect to, the people. Events are really cool, and I love to describe those, but I also love the people because, when you interview a person and you get to look them, in the eyes and see how their faces and voices change as they talk about something that they love, that's one of my favorite parts of it. So I always try and, put that, the person into the story rather than events around it. And I don't always succeed in doing that, especially things sports coverage, it's always a bit harder. But, I do like to specialize in feature stories and make it about the person, And I do have little habits that, I kind of fall into, long sentences, so, my sentence structure isn't varied enough. I have to go back in and, I always forget my word counts and, I'll finish it, I'll be like, oh wow, this is great, and I'll highlight the whole thing and hit word count, and it's 10,000 words, oh great. Time to start using the delete button.
So you try to take a humanistic approach whenever you can, right?
Yes, because I care more about, the people themselves rather than anything else.
And speaking of which, just by looking at your sports output, you've hit a stride when it comes to writing swimming-based stories. And is there a reason for that?
There is, and it's probably a little underwhelming. Yeah. So what happened was they had the swim team. They have an inter-squad meet at the first semester. It was in November, I believe, and it's held at the YMCA. And because our high school doesn't have its own pool, that's our closest swimming facility. That's where they train and everything. And so intra-squad meets are basically when, it's just the Coppell swim team racing against themselves, stuff like that. And so I had actually seen, one of my friends posted on their Instagram story, and I was like, oh, cool. But, I didn't think I'd actually attend because, I didn't really have a reason to. And then, maybe 10 minutes later, I got a text from the executive sports editor, Nick Fransky, saying, hey, can you cover swimming? I asked, 4 people before you. I'm getting desperate. It's tomorrow, things like that. And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? I mean, I was excited because, I do have friends on the swim team, and, swimming's a cool sport. You look at the Olympics, and the first thing I think of is swimming.
All right, and so out of all the stories you've written, including the swimming stories, which was your favorite in terms of meaning?
So my favorite one in terms of meaning actually wasn't a swimming story or a specific sports stories. It was one that I wrote for student life. It was kind of a combination of 3 different feature stories that kind of fell under the same umbrella. You know, it was shattering group stereotypes, the duality of acting and athletics. So it dealt with the perceived femininity of theater, like even though theater has historically been a male-dominated thing, like right now, theater has a feminine, perception around it. And then, the perceived masculinity of athletics. You think of athletics and you think of your buff, football players, And so what I did, I knew a few people who were in both theater and athletics, and I talked to them and, talked about how they balanced, this side of them and this side of them, how they thought, were they supported or not by their friends and families and teammates and, cast members and stuff like that. And I really loved that story because, first of all, it was really fun to write. Like, I'm in theater right now, and I used to do athletic stuff. Not anymore, but I used to. So, like, I kind of had a connection. It doesn't really count because I'm a girl, so I wouldn't know much about, how femininity of theater contrasts with the masculinity of athletics, especially because I didn't do it at the same time. But, it was cool to, like, think about it like that. And, all 3 of them were very articulate. They gave really good interviews, and, you could tell that they cared about both sides, like, of their lives. One of them actually doesn't do football anymore, but, like, you could still see he cared about it. They were things that they were passionate about, and being able to take all 3 of them and make something that, I was actually proud of. Like, I love the way that it ended up being written, and I love the way that I was able to have quotes in there, and I love the photos that went along with it. I just loved the entire story. It was one of my favorites, yes.
Thank you very much, Sally. You're extremely talented. And also, a special thanks to our hosts, Camila Villarreal and Sarah Wu. I'd like to congratulate our very own Anthony Cesario and former staff member Tanya Ragu for placing at the 2019 SIPA's Best Writing Contest. So, good job to them.
Yeah.
And thank you all for joining us in the 7th episode of the Penny Podcast. All links to the articles talked about are provided in the description box below. Make sure to join us next Thursday for another installment of the Penny Podcast, and watch out for Sally's swimming stories.
Yay!